You can close that door too, Des, when you get a chance, please.
Yeah, this is Mary, 3 decades, so. I think 3 decades. Well,
You can close.
yes, support for your current police program,
Mhm.
city hall.
Yeah.
So.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Just want to say we're grateful to have each and everyone here today. My name is Willie Lightfoot. I'm the city councilman, chair of public safety, and chairman of Rock Against Gun Violence Coalition. Just give me a thumbs up for those of you, Leslie, I don't only want our face I can see. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay, please. You're hearing us all right here. All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. We are so grateful. This is our September monthly meeting. And we're so grateful to have each and every one of you. We have a few people that are with us in person. And then, of course, we have about 16 people here online on our Zoom call. We're also streaming via the City Council YouTube page, which we typically do every month. And we have our regular agenda today. Hopefully, in a few minutes, Dassy will be placing the agenda if she has not already in your chat. You should have that there in just a moment. And you also should have received that via email prior to the last minutes of the meetings prior to this meeting. So typically what we do is we always stop and pause for a moment of silence to recognize all of the victims of violence that we've had up until this point in time. This year has been a very busy year, fortunately, with a lot of gun violence that we've seen and just violence in general across the gamut, not just gun violence, but just violence in general that we've been seeing with the stolen cars, et cetera, through the vehicles and things of that nature and instances with police officers concerning such. So we just want to be prayerful or the families. Think of the family out in Irondequoit. Very sad situation there. And the family with the young 1-year-old with the pit bull. Very sad situation there. Just some very unique situations that we've seen, traumatic situations that we've seen. I will be attending a wake tomorrow of a father and son, who were both, one was overdosed, the other was stabbed to death on Bartlett Street. And so it's just a lot going on. So let's just take an opportunity to pause, reflect, and just and pray for the families and victims of those who have been impacted by this violence and/or gun violence in our community. Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to go directly into our agenda. We do not have a long agenda, meaning that we don't have presenters tonight and we don't have anything out of the ordinary to present to you tonight. So we'll go directly through our presentations. I'll give a brief update to you guys on behalf of the youth committee. If I don't see either Septimus or Ruth, I will give you that update. We start with typically with introductions. We typically introduce our new people. So if you are new, and I think I just seen a young face that I haven't seen maybe typically here before, please make sure that you sign in if you don't mind, sir. If you're new, if this is your first Rock Against Gun Violence Coalition meeting, we'd like for you to introduce yourself, maybe in the organization you represent. We'll start with folks online. Is there anybody new online? We'd ask you to unmute yourself, please, sir, please, ma'am, and introduce yourself and maybe the organization that you represent. All right. If not, then we'll go to in person. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Sure. My name is Thomas Kyler. I'm the Director of Community Interventions at Ibero-American Action League, over the Project Rise grant at Ibero. So happy to be here.
Welcome. Welcome. Welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, welcome. Are you receiving our emails? Or if not, make sure when you signed in, we'll tap you in and you'll start getting all the updates and minutes to the meetings and et cetera.
Perfect.
All right, wonderful. All right, very good. We'll go directly straight into Victor Saunders, advisor on violence to the mayor's office. Hello, Mr. Saunders. You have the floor, sir.
Good evening, everyone. This is a very good day for Rochester in a way of fighting against the scourge of gun violence and crime that we have been seeing through this trying summer into the fall. We had a visit today from Governor Hochul, who was very hopeful and very helpful to the community in the way of assisting us with giving $2 million towards our anti-violence efforts here in the Rochester area. I'm glad to see everyone on the call that is going to be personally reflected in those funds. Tony and the great work that she's doing with her people over at 585 SNUG was mentioned, as well as the great work that Retha and Wanda do over at Rise Up Rochester, Serena and her team at Rock the Peace, Justin Morris and his team from Untrapped Ministries, as well as Ms. Melanie Funches and Pathways to Peace also will be receiving funding to assist in the efforts to eradicate gun violence and some of the issues of crime that we've seen in the community. One thing about Rochester and it being the small size that it is, although I'll piggyback on what the mayor stated earlier, we have had some very high profile tragic events occur in the community within the last couple of months, from the shooting at Maplewood Park that took 2 young souls, as well as the family of 4 that was recently victimized in their home in Irondequoit, as well as the 92-year-old man who was a victim of a reckless driver in a stolen vehicle. All these different things are polarizing events that unfortunately put us on the map for all the wrong things. But we have to look at every different aspect of the efforts that are going on within the community. All those different entities and agencies that I mentioned before I got started are being intricately involved in bringing down the number of shootings and homicides in the city of Rochester. Although, like I said, when the news shows what's going on, they like to show what bleeds, it leads, you know? I also have to give a kudos to our uniformed officers, state troopers, as well as Rochester Police Department and the Sheriff's Office for the work that they're doing to try and eradicate guns being on our streets. It has been a trying time for all of us as a community. When things like this occur, it affects us all so deeply and it changes the mindset within our community. Hopefully with all the great work, all the community organizations, as well as the work that's being done through Rochester Against Gun Violence, Moms Demand Action and other groups, we can help bring that mindset around to being more hopeful and be able to help turn the tide of some of these negative situations that have occurred recently. I'm happy to say, and don't let me forget the county. The county has been integral in the work that we've been doing within the community, as well as the funding that they've allowed different organizations to receive as well to assist in this fight. So there's not a whole lot out of the advisory that I have to report, other than the fact that we have been meeting with the governor's team. We'll continue to meet with the governor's team, and hopefully will allow us the opportunity to put more tools in place to be able to eradicate some of the violence that is currently occurring, as well as to intervene with our younger participants and individuals that are not involved in this criminal behavior. We definitely have to remember that of the small portion of individuals that are doing these negative acts within the community, we have a larger number of individuals within the community are doing phenomenal things. Our young people, as well as the people in the community and the community organizations. We can't forget all the great things that are occurring that don't get reported upon, that Rochester is known for. And as we prepare ourselves for the really getting into this school year, We want to be able to make sure that we are paying attention to all the students in the school, not just those that are having trouble on the street or in the school, and be able to make sure that we are addressing their social emotional needs and hopefully help change the life trajectory of some of our younger citizens living in some of our more distressed neighborhoods. So with that, that is where we are currently. And I'd just like to say thank you to all those different entities that are putting their best foot forward to try and turn the tide of the violence and different criminal activity that we see across the community. And I implore anybody online watching to be forthcoming about information that you might have that would take some of these, I would say the same thing, cowards off the street. Anybody that would stand across a park from an individual and fire into a crowd is somebody that we don't need in our community, as well as anybody who attack and victimize children. We don't need you in our community. So that's about all I have to report this evening.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Saunders? All right, thank you, Mr. Saunders. Appreciate the work that you're doing. That was great update on the information as far as the governor's office and the state. Thank you for that update. I think I saw in the chat where somebody said, let Rose Marika introduce herself. If you want to unmute and go ahead and do that, you have the floor.
Hi, my name is Rose Marika. I work with Digital Health Navigators. I'm currently in junior and senior of my high school. I'm in early college, and I'm here with Joseph Becker, and we would like to introduce some of our work.
Okay, we don't have you on the agenda, Rose Marika, but go ahead. I'll give you an opportunity to do. I wasn't aware that you were presenting tonight,
Okay.
but go
Well,
ahead.
neither was she. I just wanted to make sure that she was a new person attending and that she got to introduce herself. And I could drop some of her work in the chat and people can check it out.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Becker. Is
You're
there
welcome.
anything in particular you wanted to speak to while you have the floor now?
I would just reiterate some of what Victor is saying with respect to getting young folks involved in the overall process.
Yes, we hope that that your young folks will be working with us and in conjunction with our youth conference that we're having in October. I hope that you guys will be partner with us on that, and I'll be talking about that in my report. But we do have a new date and time and location, or not new location, but same location. But hopefully that's an opportunity where there could be some collaboration and partnership with your youth in addition to some of the other things that they're doing as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, Captain Mura, RPD update, please, sir.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'll get through this as quickly as I can. I don't have as
Okay.
much information as I normally do,
Mhm.
but I do have quite a bit, so I'll get through it as quickly as possible. So year to date, we've had 114. This is as of August 31st. Year to date, we've had 114 shooting incidents, accounting for 145 actual victims. Homicides year to date, as of August 31st, were 40. That is down over the last few years, so we're steadily coming down. Keep in mind that our 10-year average is 43 per year. So even, as I've said many times, even one is too many, but we're trending in the right direction and we're pushing that number down every single year, and we're going to keep doing that. Guns that we took off the street in August, 40 handguns, 6 long guns. 5 of those guns were ghost guns. And year to date, as of August 31st, 401 guns taken off the street. So I've said this before as well. That's 401 illegal guns taken off the streets of Rochester in 9 months, 8 months, basically.
Captain Mira,
That's, yes,
Captain
sir.
Mira, I wanna ask this question, and I hate to interrupt you, but I wanna ask this question while it's fresh in my mind. Because every month we hear, and I'm grateful for the work that you're doing, the men and women on the department, the police department are doing to get these guns off the street, and I truly appreciate that. However, I'm what one of the things that constantly comes to my mind every time I hear this monthly report on how many guns off the street, I keep feeling like why when we did the gun trace data report last year, the purpose of that report was to draw and highlight where these crime guns are coming from. Every time that I feel like every time that we hear that there's a gun taken off the street, how do we get to a place where the next thing we hear is where that gun came from? And I'm wondering why, like, how do we get to a place where when you say that there's 40 guns taken off the street in August, that's just 1 month, right? Am I correct in what you said?
That is, actually, there were 46 in
Okay.
August.
Yeah, and 5 of them were ghost guns or whatever. So that's a lot of guns for it's
Yes,
almost
sir.
a gun a day. When do we get to a place where we now begin to know if are those guns, and I know in the gun trace data report, the issue with the TR was that we could not give the names of the specific gun dealers. So I'm not even asking for the name, but I would at least, and I believe the public, and I disagree with the TR and ATF position on that. And we're working to lobby with our federal partners to change, amend that. But in the meantime, just knowing that if they're local or out of state, by itself, knowing that we know over 50% of the crime guns, based on the gun trace data report, over 50% of the crime guns in Monroe County came from Monroe County. We had a homegrown crime gun problem. So because of that highlighted data that informed us, then to me, we should be, as we bring in these guns in off the street, we should be more compiling that data. And we're working on a piece of legislation currently now in City Council to make this gun trace data report a yearly or biannually thing. But it doesn't, if we're not using it properly, or if we're not filling the gap on what I believe this data report does for us, because then we're maybe not using the preventive side of dealing with the bad apples, if you will, which we know is only like 10% or less than 10% of the gun dealers are the bad apples. But if we, and I'm just giving an example, if out of 46 guns and we find out 25 of those guns came from the same place here locally, that's helpful information. Because now it's kind of like, okay, ATF, what are we doing to inspect that particular gun dealer? What are we doing to let them know that we're watching them and that this is too much of a trend? This is too much of a coincidence. So I guess I'm asking you, sir, like, how do we get to that place where we begin to get the report of where these guns are being traced back to, these crime guns?
So I will defer to the ATF because quite frankly, I don't know what the turnaround time is for each specific, any one gun. If my guys went out, say right now, and got an illegal gun off the street, turned it into property and did everything they had to do to run it through and get a trace on it, I don't know what the turnaround time is. And I think the ATF would have a better idea. If the turnaround time is a couple of weeks, I could probably give everybody on this call an idea of the percentages of guns from Monroe County, outside of Monroe County and outside of the state. If the turnaround time is greater than a few weeks, then maybe I can delay giving the data for a couple of months. And I could say, for instance, instead of reporting on August right now, I could be reporting on June and give you all the data at once. And then give you up-to-date monthly data via email. Or
Yeah.
something along those lines.
Well, Captain, I appreciate that. And that, if I'll put it to you like this, it'll be more than what we currently have, right? And it'll be a level of consistency of what we've never had. And that's not to point finger at anyone. It's just, how can we do better? How can we learn from the work that we've done and the work that this coalition has done alongside with the mayor's office, because that was a joint agreement, memorandum of agreement with the city of Rochester and Brady. And it was groundbreaking work that we are one of only 5 cities and the only small size city in America to have such a report. But I think we can start really building upon the information that we learned from the truth behind crime guns. And what I think every citizen should have learned from that report, if nothing else, should have learned that these things are traceable and that they're traceable back to a place, and many of these places are right here locally. That's very staggering, and I think a lot of people, when they hear that, they're really amazed, that because they're thinking all of these guns come from out of our state, and we know a lot of them do, but many of them come from right here in Monroe County. And so it just be very helpful to know that if that's still what's trending, and as you say, when we're tracking the trending of homicides, we're tracking the trending of shootings, we're tracking the trending of these things, we also should be tracking the trending of crime guns and their sources. Because I think that's a major gap that we found in our preventive efforts, and eradication efforts, that this coalition has identified, and that we're going to be steadfast in that preventive piece, because that's a very, 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 very important piece of the crime gun trafficking that's intentionally happening in our community. And we're going to continue to draw light to that. And in order to do that, we got to keep that light shining on that. And I believe that's something that when we hear those guns, 50, 60, whatever, and at the end of the year, when we say 400 guns were taken off the street, then we need to see a pie graph, as we're going to be seeing now. You're saying like every other month or whatever, and then monthly getting the updates. But I'm saying, as we compile that, and then we give maybe biannually or yearly reports from the coalition to the community, then we, from the solution action plan, we can come back and say, okay, 400, hypothetically, guns were taken off the street. 50% of them guns, I'm just throwing out a hypothetical number, are still coming from Monroe County. We know the dealers that they're coming from, and what are we doing to apply pressure, ATF, to inspection? Because we know dealers only get inspected once every 10 years. That's ridiculous, right? So I think there's some areas that we can help too, and everybody has their role. And the coalition's role, one of the things that we're doing on that side of on the gun dealership side is something that we don't hear a lot of people talking about, sir.
When we refer to dealers, I just want a clarification because I was reading that in this report.
Sure.
Are we talking about, because when we're talking about ghost guns, my assumption is we're talking about like 3D printed guns and what
That's
have
right.
you. So when you talk about dealers, are you talking about like legal firearm dealers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Gotcha.
we're talking about legal firearm dealers. A lot of these crime guns are traced back to these legal firearm dealers, and majority of the way, either they're stolen or they're straw purchasing is the way. Straw purchasing, when a legal person goes in, buy the gun, and then sells it, just gives it to somebody else.
Gotcha.
That's a straw purchase. And so we're finding out, the data shows us that that's happening in a lot of these legal dealers. That and dealers are not just the chain companies either, right? There's independent ones as well too. And so, but they still have to be licensed and all of that,
Gotcha.
and inspected and all of that, and they still have criteria that they have to follow. And so what we're saying is that we hear these reports of the guns taken off the street, but I think as we evolve, what I would want to see one day as all of this information more gets inputted on open data portal, or as more becomes public, that I want to see that information just won't become just as readily and transparent as the person's name who got shot, the person who did the shooting, once they come to justice, then where they got that gun from. Should
Yes.
be just as, that information should just be as transparent to the public as all of that other information.
Absolutely, and I'm happy that we brought this up because it's been something I've been thinking about for a while. And the reason why I asked that question is because I'm a legal licensed firearm
Sure,
owner
so
and
am
things
I.
of that nature.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So what I remember having a conversation about a while ago is very soon after the top shooting out in Buffalo. There was a law change that happened that essentially said that if a public space, if a space or a business is not directly posted that firearms are allowed in that establishment, then you can't bring your firearm in there. And the decision that was made is that the firearm was supposed to be left in the car in the lockbox and things like that, or what have you. And what I also noticed is in that same year, we saw the uptick of the whole Kia Boy situation, and Joseph and Rose Marika's group, the Digital Navigators and GIS Scholars, put out a study that showed that motor vehicle thefts at that point in time were up 300%. So in my mind, I was thinking it's very interesting that legislation went into place, that the guns had to be kept in the car. If you couldn't bring them into the place, while simultaneously motor vehicle thefts were up 300%. And I was interested at that particular point in time, how many of those legal firearm carriers had their firearms stolen because of those two correlations. And, you know, making a statement of how often do we not look at things from a holistic time period. So not exactly a question I'm posing, but I'm wondering if that can be a conversation that can come up in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's something that we've also looked into, the stolen guns. And that's one of the reasons why the data report, we believe, was very helpful to us, because we were able to kind of, we realized that as much information we can get about these guns and where they're being traced back to
Yeah.
is very helpful, even to how people are reporting lost guns
Definitely.
as well. And so it is definitely something that this coalition has been having a conversation about, has been moving on. I don't know if you had a chance to read the Rockingham Gun Violence Solution Action Plan. Before you leave, we can make sure, I think they're on the table, we can make sure that you have a copy of that, but you may see some of that mentioned in the plan, and we'd love to, you know, be a part of having more of a conversation around that.
Definitely. And then the last question I have
Sure.
for this part is, you know, being a licensed gun owner yourself, I'm sure you're aware now that you have to register when you purchase ammunition and things of that nature.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering, and this may be more of a question for the RPD on the line, is there a mechanism in place to track, you know, bullets and things like that purchased here? Because now you have to register when you buy them, you have to write your name down and et cetera like that. When you buy them, is there a mechanism to track bullets like
So-
there is to track actual firearms?
Captain Mura, this question came up to me earlier last week too. And so it's a two-part question, because the second part, is there a mechanism for tracking ammunition for legal guns and or ammunition for ghost guns?
So the ammunition for both would have to be purchased, you would think, through legal means, and you'd have to sign for it. The tracking would go through the state and or federal government, I believe. As somebody goes into a gun dealership to purchase the ammo. Having said that, I'm certain, although I have no information on it, I can look into it for next meeting. I'm certain that there's probably a black market trade for ammunition as well. And the ATF might be able to help us out with that. And going back to your original question, as far as tracing the guns that we get off the street, I'll work with the ATF. So at next month's meeting, if I can afford the information to you for September, I will, although the turnaround will be pretty tight because this meeting is usually within a week of the end of the month. At the bare minimum, I'll get you what I can for the previous month, and I'll work with the ATF and I'll make sure we get this data to the group.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that was just something. I mean, every time I hear those numbers, I cringe because I go, you know, we gotta start connecting those dots. Go ahead,
Right.
Captain.
Willie,
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there
Sean
somebody else?
Thomas, ATS.
Oh, there. Okay, Sean, how
Sean,
are you, sir?
good. How are you tonight?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Glad
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Yes.
Uh, did I cut out on?
No, go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah. So as far as the gun trace data, so that comes back. It varies case by case. Some guns are prioritized, obviously homicides and things like that, and we can get that back pretty quickly. And then other guns, it could take months. You know, it all varies. It's case by case. It's also dependent on the workload of the tracing center. But I think Mike has probably discussed this before too. We're also limited in what we can release as far as the information goes. Congress limits what we can release to the public. So, you know, that's been kind of a hurdle that we've had to try and conquer here. And as far as releasing trace data, when we do get approval and we can release it to the public, you know, the other issue is just because a gun goes back to a purchase from a firearms dealer in Monroe County doesn't necessarily mean it's spent its life in Monroe County. That's part of the problem with releasing the data prematurely because we've got to figure out the life of the gun between that purchase, whether it was like 2 years ago, 2 weeks ago. You know, we have to figure out who had hands on that gun in between that time. So really, we just don't want to release the information prematurely, and you know, maybe put the spotlight on an innocent person, essentially.
Well, I would say thank you, Sean, for that. And I would say what I would hope we're able to do as we begin to entertain this further is that we would, whatever information, there's some information that you don't have or that may be premature, but then there's some factual information that's sustaining. So I'm saying, just let's start with the sustained information. Because I believe that there's enough sustained information to give us some direction and some help and some support as to what are we doing. Because here's my thing. When we find out about the sustained information, like we did in the Brady gun trace data report, right, about the 50%, and I understand that gun can start here, but time to crime, it may not be, it's gone through many hands or et cetera, whatnot. So that's why I say the sustained information or the information that's been proven that, you know exactly what's going on with that information would be helpful and whatever we can share as far as we know we're not putting out names of gun dealers. So we get that. We know that that's an issue. But we were able to put out percentages. And I think that was helpful alone. Having that information, and not only does it help Joe Public, but it helps law enforcement. And as you guys have access to this information, but others and or people that are working in these spaces. So we would really appreciate to start with as much that we can start with, as much as you're able to give us, would be more than what we've ever gotten in the past.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we'll take any requests, and I'll see what we can release, and we'll release as much as we possibly can. And as far as the law enforcement side goes, we're able to disclose a little more to our law enforcement partners and what we can to the public for investigative purposes. So there is some information flow there. So
that's
so
good
you're
to
aware,
know.
I guess.
I'm sure that makes sense. Siobhan, I saw you had your hand up.
Hi, can you hear me? Good evening.
We can hear you fine.
Okay, so you guys raised a lot of great points and questions. I'm thinking more so about so when they said that they recover guns, how do they categorize it? And this may be a question for Captain Miro, like guns that are connected to a crime, or are these guns just being recovered because due to a traffic stop or something of that sort? Is there a way that, you know, the data is showing that it's coming from a certain area?
Captain Mira, do you,
So I believe I understand the question. The majority, if not all of the guns that I'm reporting are crime guns. And it doesn't mean
Okay.
they were used in a shooting, but it does mean that it was attached to a crime. And that crime very well may have been simply being in possession of that illegal handgun without a permit.
Oh, understood.
Okay, so I have a few more things I'm sorry,
go ahead,
Siobhan, does
go
that
ahead.
answer,
Well,
does that answer your-
you're off the hook tonight because Kathy's not feeling well. She's not with us.
Listen, I like it when Kathy's here.
But go ahead, Kat.
Siobhan, did that answer your question for you?
Yes, because while you guys are talking, I was like, are these guns connected to crimes? And then you kind of specify that it's still a crime, even if the gun is found, but doesn't mean that it's tied to, you know, a shooting or a murder or so forth.
Right. Okay, so bearing that in mind, the last bit of data that I have is during the month of August, 56 criminal possession of a weapon arraignments took place in Monroe County. So 56 people were arrested for being in possession of an illegal firearm. 4 of the individuals were held without bail. 44 individuals had cash or bail set. And of those cases, 16 individuals had the cash bail set at $5,000 or less. 5 individuals were released with non-monetary conditions. And 3 of the individuals, we couldn't get the data. So they probably were arraigned right at the end of the month and the data didn't come up. So that's all I have for now. And Councilman, I'll reach out to you later in the week and just clarify exactly what you're looking for. I'll talk with Sean, and anything that we can release, I am happy to bring it to the meetings.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Appreciate you, Captain Mira, and all the work that you guys are doing, and thank you for continuing doing that. And anytime you can get these guns off the street, that's great. We're going to go into, I believe Leslie's going to be reporting for crisis intervention, and I don't know if you have anything else for the resource committee as well either. But Leslie, you have the floor.
Hello.
Hello.
All is well over here at PIC. Our number of calls that we had came through. Our department was 1156 for the month of August. And that's basically, it's broken down, of course, into co-response, no service, and PIC alone. Other than that, that's all the update I have that's regarding numbers for the PIC team.
Okay. How are you guys doing with the resource guide? I know you guys were working on that.
We are working on it. We have started putting it together, but we are nowhere near complete as of yet.
Okay.
Aaliyah is kind of heading that, but I know she had started it, but it's not completed as of right now.
Wonderful. Okay. Did anybody have any questions for Leslie? If not, we'll move on. I don't think we have anyone here. Is Tanios over here or someone from the media? I don't believe I'm seeing anyone from media. Youth.
Hello.
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Just no updates at this time.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Is President Miguel Melendez, are you on, sir?
Yeah. Later. Hey, sorry about that. Yes, I am here.
Go ahead, if you would like to give an update.
Yeah, so very briefly, we have a couple of things that are being worked on in the law department of the city. One is the gun trace report that Chair Lightfoot was talking about to make that at least a biannual report of city government. And then another thing that we're working on is related to county government, actually, to memorialize a request for to declare gun violence as a public health crisis in the county and requested that comes with support at the county level. In addition to what we do in city government. I know last month we had the Cure Violence presentation, so it's great to see that there's some work happening already at the county, but to make this official, treat it as they do other public health crises in the community, such as COVID and such as the opioid crisis, for us is important. So we're going to push in that direction to advocate for that. And then we do have procurement legislation that's still being worked on. I believe Dassey's still spending some energy on that. And so the hope is by October to have that in the law department for review so that we can also pass procurement legislation in City Hall. Those are my updates for now.
Thank you. Thank you, President Melendez. Anybody have any questions for President Melendez on those things? So basically what we're talking about, basically 3 pieces of legislation that are hoping to be in effect or close to being in effect by October, which is this year, which is very unprecedented when these things are all centered, around gun violence and violence. But then there are actually pieces of legislation, procurement, which is one of the ones that was mentioned as a recommendation from the Brady Gun Trace Data Report by Brady National. The memorial resolution for the treating gun violence as a crisis is important, I think, and that pushes, all of our partners to really look at this as more of a priority. Not that they're not looking at it a priority, but to kind of get everybody to having a collective conversation around the, putting somewhat of the resources, and we've seen some of those today, but more resources around this issue. And so we're very excited about council taking this position, and we're hoping that it will push some of our other partners, and then of course the biannual, making it a piece of legislation for a biannual gun trace data report, which, as you hear us talking about tonight, we believe is very, very important piece to eradicating the gun violence in our community when we look at the crime guns, and the source of crime guns. And that's very, very important. And so these are pieces we're moving on now. We're taking this stuff very serious. And I thank President Melendez for upholding that committee and leading these efforts forward. Okay, so I'm gonna, is Septimus or Ruth on the call? If not, all right, very good. I'll do the youth report. So back in July, or prior to July, we were planning to have our youth conference, Youth in Crisis conference in July. We postponed it, pushed it up to October 26th, I believe. So October 26th, it starts at 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's at the Rochester Riverside Convention. When Dassey sends out the minutes of this meeting, we will also send the save the date flyer to all of you as well as the Eventbrite. We're projecting to have over 200 youth at this conference. This is an opportunity for collaboration with every youth organization, to include the Rochester City School District, in this city and this county. We have reached out to, as youth, Ruth, Septimus, Dassey, myself, we have been intentional to reach out to as many youth organizations as we possibly can. If you know of a youth organization that we have not reached out to, or that because you're getting the minutes to these meetings, and we'll make sure that you get information regarding the conference, the Youth in Crisis Conference. And we know we have some young folks on the call today that are working in this space. We implore you to partner with us, connect with myself or Dassey, and we will make sure that you get connected with Ruth and Septimus, who are the chair and co-chairs of the Youth Committee for the Rock Against Gun Violence Coalition. And they are working diligently to make this youth conference not only an annual thing, but to be an amazing opportunity for young people to really engage in the conversation and action and partnership around speaking to their issues, right, from their perspectives. And so we want to just make you aware of that's moving forward, the new date. It's all locked in and pretty much, it's coming together pretty nicely. But we're looking for you to please spread the word. Once you get this information, we're looking for you to, it's free. Food will be served as well. And there will be agencies there as well. There's a full program that we have. We're excited about the keynote speaker. We're excited about the MC, people that are very well known in the neighborhood, in our community. More of that information will be forthcoming. But the save the date will be coming out in the minutes of the meeting and all of that. And contact information if you want to engage or you know someone we may have not engaged around youth. And please, we're asking everyone on this call to identify at least 10 youth, 5 to 10 youth that you gets to sign up within the next 30 days. All right. 5 to 10 youth is the homework. Before our next meeting, I'm going to come back next meeting. I'm going to ask you, did you get 5 youth? Did you get 10 youth? Did you at least text, email, message, instant message someone the Eventbrite link and say, hey, this is something you need to be at. This is something you need to be involved with. Okay. So we're asking you for your help. Please, sir, please, ma'am. We want this to be an annual thing. We want this to be something that's really incredible. I'll be honest with you. I haven't really been a part of myself of seeing this type of event that's centered around violence and gun violence in our community. And so, you know, we want to really do our best to make this a great opportunity, a great educational opportunity, a learning opportunity, and also something that catapults our young people into action, right? Solutions coming from them as well too. And this came about as a result of the community meetings we had for the Rock Against Gun Violence Coalition Solution Action Plan. So we had youth that were engaged in that, and this is one of the things that they talked about doing as well. So we're saying, hopefully you see a pattern here of us implementing a lot of things from our Rock Against Gun Violence Solution Action Plan. A lot of those things that we're putting into action and implementing, and we're way ahead in many of those things as far as the timeline of implementation. We're less than just a year, and we're already implementing quite a bit. So that is pretty much all that I had for that report. And for my chairman's update, it's pretty much, I say this at every meeting. I'm gonna continue to say this at every meeting. But I really want to encourage our partners to continue to share information. The more information that we share with each other and the various things that we're doing and collaborating with each other, the more stronger that we're going to be as a coalition and as a community. We can't tell the community to share information if we're not sharing it ourselves. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make any sense. So, and let's do the things that we're employing others to do, and let's support one another in those endeavors so that we can be much stronger united than we can apart. All right. So that is what. Does anybody have any questions for myself or anything that they may want to share before we get ready to close out?
With the youth summit, are you reaching out to schools?
Yes. So we actually have one of our speakers is Mr. Isaiah Santiago. Yes, as well as our vice chair of this committee is also Ms. Griffin, Jackie, who's on the school board as well. So we've been working very closely with the city school district and through those individuals.
Gotcha. Might have some thoughts after if you.
We absolutely are looking for input, for thoughts, collaboration. Just connect with Dassy, or connect directly with me, and I'll get you connected with Septimus and Ruth. Yeah.
Share something as well. I will connect with you all. I know I'm some guests right now, but what I have found that works, especially to get youth involved, is to show that there's some incentive for them to be there. A great tool to get is to show up to speeches, to community engagements like this, is possibly reaching out to the teachers saying there's some type of extra credit involved. And they will
Okay.
be there, and their parents will be there too, I guarantee you.
Okay.
Also, you got food covered, so there
Yeah.
will be a big turnout because of that as well.
Yeah.
That's usually what gets you through the door to go to these types of things, some extra credit involved incentive.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing it. Especially, I don't know if they still have a lot of participation in government classes or community service. Okay,
Yeah, nice. Community service, I know there's some type of credits in certain schools, but not everywhere.
all right, we'll look into that. We'll find out if we can definitely send that out. That's very good. That's very helpful. Anyone else? All right, so our next meeting is October 14th. It'll be hybrid again. We hope to have you, prior to that meeting, you'll be getting whatever information and data that we have been shared with tonight through RPD. You'll get the minutes of this particular meeting. You'll get the save the date and the Eventbrite link for the Rock Against Gun Violence Coalition Youth in Crisis Conference, first annual conference. You'll get that. We're very excited about that. We're putting a lot of our energy and time around that. And we hope to let that be kind of the center of our focus for the next 30 days, is really getting that message and marketing that. And we'll check back into some of the input that's been given to us tonight. And hopefully we can, implement some of those things to be incentives for our young people. And we're just excited about hosting this event and being able to engage with our young people and our partners that want to be involved and will be involved at this particular event. So I want to thank all of you for all that you do. God bless you. I appreciate all of your work in all of the spaces. I know that you're working in many different spaces around this topic, and I appreciate you month after month after month and day after day after day. Those of you who are working in the trenches and those of you who report to us each and every month in this information. Let's keep the fight as far as, eradication, education, advocating around gun violence. Let's keep praying for one another and keep loving each other. All right. May God bless you. May God keep you is our prayer, and we'll see you next month. Blessings.
Have a great night.
Take care.
You too.